be recorded?
Yeah, we just started the recording, so that should be going live now. So yes, we'll have it recorded and we'll get you the recording and the slides along with a few follow-up items, most likely Friday. After we'll discuss a couple items that'll be forthcoming as well. So good morning, everyone. Just going to show the director's calendar here again to get started, and several of these things that are on here are going to be covered during the session today. But as you can see, there's quite a few things going on in October, as you know, and kind of the invoice submissions finalization for the end of September as well. So again, just always wanting to start with this item, and then and we'll walk through several of these items in more detail throughout the discussion today. All right, and with that, we will turn it over to Laura, and she's going to discuss some items pertaining to monitoring and fiscal items to get us started.
Good morning, everyone. We'll start with monitoring. So we have completed did somebody have a question? I heard somebody. We've completed the risk assessments, and we are going to be putting your scores and results into Indy Grants. Those will be available at the start of next week. We will send an email when those are ready for you to view. And then how you can view those in Indy Grants. So expect that probably Tuesday of next week. Also, if you will be one of the districts that were selected for the next round, the desk audit, you will also receive an email on your next steps for completing the desk audit. And that will also happen in Indy Grants. So you'll upload documents into Indy Grants. So you'll have that information next week as well. Okay, and then fiscal updates. We have made one edit to kind of how Indy Grants processes pair forms. When we initially started the process, each form had a requirement for 2 signatures, and Chris has been able to, with the pair forms, the director's signature will move the action from pending to reviewable. So you won't need to require your fiscal person to do the second signature on pair forms. And that is as it was on the PDF forms, only 1 signature was required on pair forms. We just needed to get that update happening in Indy Grants, and that is current. So now when you complete a pair form, it will process after the director's signature, and then we will get the notification. When you just looking in Indy Grants, there are really a lot of pending invoices. So I thought it might be wise to just remind you that we do not review any invoices or reimbursement requests unless the status is reviewable. So once the second signature, so director signs, fiscal agent signs, or in reverse, the sequence doesn't matter. But once the second signature is submitted, we get the notification that the invoice is reviewable. And that is when Kathleen and I will go in and be able to access and review that invoice. So because there were so many pending, I thought maybe that reminder would be helpful. And then again, September 30th for final reimbursement requests for the 22-23 year. Reserve grants will be coming. Applications will be open in the middle of October, due on November 10th. And those applications we hope to also have in Indy Grants. So monitoring and fiscal, any questions for me? That was pretty quick.
I think one thing that we could use some feedback on for the reserve grants, I know last year we had them do it one time and then we pushed that back about a week because it coincided with the enrollment deadline for your 30A report. So if November 10th isn't quite enough time or something like that, please feel free to reach out and let us know. When we get ready to open that up, we will provide some more information about reserve grants as well. So just wanted to take a few minutes here to
Hey,
kind
Tony,
of.
it's Gene, sorry.
Yep.
Do we have who qualifies for reserve grants, or is it open to all?
It's open to all, but keep in mind, it'll be the same as what we've been using over the last, or the 2 or 3 previous years that we've been doing this, that some schools will be able to qualify as a rural school. If you do not qualify as a rural school, you would have to qualify under the aspect of being able to identify an opportunity or a performance gap that you're going to try to improve with the reserve grant. So everybody's eligible. All eligible recipients are eligible for reserve grants. These are not eligible, like non-Perkins recipients are not eligible for reserve grants.
Tony, this is Stephen Duggan at Whitewater.
Yep.
By definition, we're working with Cell on a grant, a rural grant. According to Janet Boyle, we actually are considered rural because of the districts that are considered rural in our region. However, last time we tried to do a grant like this, only 2 of our 6. So we weren't considered rural by distinction for your particular grant criteria. Has something changed on that from the information she's given us? Or is she giving us different information based on what you see?
It is probably just based upon a different definition of rural. What we've used as the definition of rural is that 50% or more of your sending schools are also considered rural. The way we determine that is there's a list that's provided by the Department of Ed that goes out. Now, what that may mean is that Cell may be using a definition that says, hey, as long as you have a single rural school, you would qualify as a rural school. We've just used the 50%. But Laura, does any of that sound familiar?
Steve, I know that Cell uses the federal locale code. And so it would be kind of surprising if DOE is not using something similar or with what they're reporting out, but if there's a difference, it sounds like that might be where it is. So there's a site you can find if you're rural as a federal locale code. And then, I'm not sure how, the feds kind of define that, but they would just use the locale code on that site.
Okay, I appreciate the info, but there's definitely some kind of confusion between what they're telling us, because 4 of our 6, I believe, were rural, and by definition, last time only 2 of our 6 were. So that's why I was curious. Is there any way you guys can send us a list of who's that by definition considered rural?
We always provide a list that is provided by DOE that identifies whether a school is considered rural or not. So yeah, we'll be happy to provide that list. We'll even reach out to them to see if we can't get an updated list for that.
Thank you much.
Thank you, sir. And I should. All right, so as we start talking about the CLNA, just want to talk about a couple of things here regarding, one, the deadline to submit. So last year, because of a little bit of a late start with the CLNAs, we said that you could turn in your CLNA at the same time that you submitted your local application. One of the things that we wanted to make sure that we do this year is you have to submit your CLNA 1 month prior to submitting your local application. This is to give our team an opportunity to review the CLNA, provide any comments on the CLNA, possibly, give you a chance to edit any of the results or the findings from your CLNA, or to provide some additional information before submitting your local application. Because part of the reason we want to do this is as we keep moving forward with this, the requirement is that, if it's not in your CLNA, then we can approve it as an activity for your local application. So we definitely want to have that time to review and to make some adjustments if needed before you submit your local application. The deadline to submit your local application is April 12th, which would mean the deadline to submit your CLNA would be March 12th. But if you're one of those people that for whatever reason, maybe you're going on spring break, it just suits your calendar better, that you want to submit your local application early. Let's say that you wanted to submit your local application on April 1st, then you should be targeting March 1st to get your CLNA submitted. The other thing we wanted to talk about, I know that there's already a couple of regions that have actually already had their meeting, but we did send out a email to all of the workforce board directors about reaching out to you. Everything that we've heard is they were expecting this, they were ready for this, and they should be contacting you relatively soon regarding the regional collaboration meetings if they haven't already done so. We will be sharing with the workforce board directors a copy of the slide deck. We will also share that slide deck with you as well, just to maybe help increase the collaboration. But just remember that the real goal of the regional collaboration meetings is to talk about and to discuss the labor market alignment of CTE programs. What you learn as a part of the regional collaboration meeting should help you to do the quadrant analysis with your CLNA. If you're not familiar with the quadrant analysis, basically you are asked to take all of your programs of study that you are offering, all of the Perkins managed programs of study that you are offering, and place them into one of four quadrants based upon where your enrollment falls compared to what the demand for that particular occupation is in your region or your district. The other thing that we are going to ask this year is, because we are getting ready to work on that state plan, we're also going to have a section of those regional collaboration meetings that we just need to get some feedback from stakeholders. We're going to be taking other steps to get feedback as a part of this, but we just thought this would be a good opportunity to maybe get some feedback from industry, Perkins recipients, as well as post-secondary and workforce boards all at the same time. So we are going to include a few of those questions in the slide deck. Again, we'll share this with you to kind of help facilitate and make sure that those meetings run pretty smoothly. As you talk to them, we don't have any requirements on whether this is a virtual meeting or whether it's an in-person meeting. We had a little bit of both the last time. We will be reaching back out to the workforce directors to share with us when the meetings are taking place, partly because we would love to have a representative there. There were a lot of great conversations the last time that we did this. The last thing regarding the CLNA that I wanted to share is around the performance data labs. This is what we called equity labs the last time through. We think this name is a little bit more reflective of our goals for that project. We are working to adjust the agenda a little bit to make sure that we have more time for data analysis, as well as a strategy session. We are working to move toward in-person sessions. Our goal is to have 5 or 6 sessions around the state. Just like last time, each district would be required to attend one session around that. We're going to start these the week of October 23rd. And we will include some proposed dates and regions in the follow-up email, or in another follow-up email that will be coming out pretty soon. But we are going to try to get to that there's some place that would be nearby for you to join this. We are looking at something like a half-day session or in that neighborhood. not necessarily a full day, but all of that information will be coming out. One thing that, whether you're doing the equity data or the disaggregated data or just your overall data, again, I know Chris is going to talk about like completion data and getting that inputted into the inter-system. We should be using 21, 22, and 22, 23 data this year. And so as soon as we can get that 22, 23 data to a point of completion, we would like to do that. Any questions about the CLNA? Perfect.
Tony,
So, yep.
Region One workforce folks didn't know anything about it.
Okay, we'll work on that. The Stephanie Wells should have sent them an email, but we are working through the Workforce Board Association, but we can reach out to them to kind of touch base with them. Tim, who's the Region 1 director up there?
Audra, it's Lisa, I don't know.
Lisa Doherty.
Okay. Yeah, we'll check on that.
Tony,
Yep.
it's Steve Shaw. Is the format going to be the same as it was a couple of years ago? As the document itself?
The CLNA, you mean?
Yes.
So the only thing that has changed about the CLNA, and Chris, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, is because the law says that you just have to update your CLNA, we've created, like, for each question that you have to address within the CLNA, we have separated those into like two boxes. The first box has what you put in the CLNA the last time. And then there is a blank box for you to provide your updated data or your updated findings. So the format is very similar, but you're going to see like, well, this is what we reported the last time. Now we've got to provide an update for that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, Tony, this is Bill Kovach. I have one more question. Sorry. When will we know, or how will we know when the 22-23 data would be available? Is that just going to be an email, you think, or what?
So as you know, each indicator requires different sets of data. So we can try, as things kind of become available, to let everyone know. The main thing that, like your 5S1, 5S2, 5S3, that kind of stuff, you could already be looking at that because that's data that you entered that theoretically is already there. The problem is we don't have graduation data from DOE yet. So all of the reports require students to be, I shouldn't say all the reports, some of them that's the numerator, but all the rest of them, the denominator is graduation. So they have to be in the cohort, but also have graduated. So we added when you go to run the reports, we added last year a button that says to run all, I can't remember what the button says right this second, but to run all seniors, I think is what it says. And that will run the report for all the people in your cohort, regardless of their graduation, because we don't know that yet. So you can go ahead and run those reports and you'll have a good, most of our, like 99% of our students graduate or something. So the reports should be pretty close if you do 5S1, 5S2, 5S3. The others, the academic stuff and the graduation stuff, we can't do anything with that until we get data from DOE, and we will let you know when we do. But last year, you guys were probably on Christmas break when we got it. We didn't get it till the very end of the year. So we'll let you know. But as I say, for now, you can be running those reports. They're really the ones that need to be addressed are the ones, the placement, which again, we can't do that quite yet, but then the 5S1, 5S2, 5S3, but we will let you know when we have stuff.
Which keep in mind that CLNA really focuses in on those four, right? It's the, well, I mean, we look at concentrator status, like how many of your students went on to get concentrator status, but after that, it's absolutely what are we doing on 5S1, 2, and 3, and then I think it's 3S1, which is the placement one. So a couple of weeks ago, we had the opportunity, Commissioner Lowry, prior to the September commission meeting, wanted to visit a couple of schools, and we spent one day in the afternoon meeting with Brown County, and then we followed up the next day with meeting at Prosser Career Center. Kyle had done a great job of inviting a great group of stakeholders, and we had a great discussion. But one of the things that we heard that day from the directors that were present was, we just need to have some time that we can talk to other directors, and see how they're doing some things. And we thought it would be a really good opportunity for us to at least spend a few minutes on these webinars if there was a particular topic that we could address. And this is really a chance for you to kind of share out with us. But also what we're looking for is for other directors to maybe share, how did you do this? How did you make this easier? How did you make this better? So our question for today is, what challenges are you anticipating in regard to completing the CLNA? And then we'll give others a chance to respond to maybe how they've addressed that challenge. So if there's anyone that would like to kick us off.
Has anybody out there had issues trying to get volunteers to be part of the leadership team or be in the regional collaboration?
I might pose another question. Is anybody providing stipends for those individuals? Like you're providing a stipend for someone to help coordinate this. I know that many of you are working with the FLEC group as a part of this, but
I'll lean in here and just tell you, we haven't had a problem finding leadership. We don't typically get a very huge response on the stakeholder side. I try to invite 2 from every category, and I anticipate that a good response, maybe overall, but percentage wise, that as far as 2 per category, we won't see the numbers. We have started, and I'll tell the directors across the board that we're working with Ben from a Flex group, and I really appreciate the way that they've structured that. Matter of fact, I've asked Ben has come down and helped me with the meetings. We have done 2 leadership team meetings so far, and we try to, I know sometimes we check the box. We don't. In this case, I'm trying really hard not to just check the box. I really want this to be a good process. We're a big district. We have 6 counties and we're 26 sending schools. And so trying to really answer the questions as heartfelt as possible. Although I know this year I'm going to scale back my answers a little bit because I got a little winded. But no, we haven't had any problem finding leaders. And no, Tony, we're not paying a stipend. We try to do it during the day. The best I've done is I've tried to feed them lunch. So that tends to entice people with a little food.
thank you, Kyle, for that. I think that kind of broadens the scope here a little bit, because I think that's a really good part of this is, how do you get the leadership team involved or get some individuals to engage in the leadership group of this, but also then how do you get stakeholders on board? Anyone else want to share?
And if I could just circle back just for 1 second, I will tell you, getting stakeholders involved, one thing I'm going to try to do this year is really speak to that during advisory board meetings. Trying to there's so many different aspects of our advisory board that touches on the community. A lot of times it's not just a business owner, but it's a post-secondary person. It's so trying to speak in those advisory meetings to tell folks it's coming. Is anybody interested in participating? And I have grabbed a few people that say they will be there. And again, I'm feeding them dinners. That sometimes helps. But just by bringing it up in advisory board meetings and the importance of it, I think that helps steer people towards participation.
Hey, this is Jim. Yeah, we do the same. Just try and get representation from all 6 of our counties, all 11 of our schools, make sure all our teachers and our students are coming from the same program area, so they're not all health science people. And we're the same way. We don't pay anybody to be there. We use some of our business partners that are doing internships. If they got a kid in their building for an internship, they're pretty good about showing up to help us with the big meeting. But yeah, just getting them all together. We don't feed them lunch for the big group. We try to be done before lunch. But for the leadership teams, yeah, we feed those guys lunch because those are long meetings and there's a lot of input that we need out of them. So those can go 2-3 hours.
Tony, this is Bob Phelps. Yeah, for the 21-22, you guys shared a guidebook. Has that been shared again, or will it be updated at all? We also got a slide deck with some helpful information. I know there's other new directors who probably have some questions, and it was answered in some of those documents.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain that we shared. I'm pretty certain that we shared the guidebook in the follow-up email to the last webinar. But we can certainly share that again, and I think we will also go back and share. I think I recall which slide deck that you're talking about, but we can go back and do that. One of the things that we did in the guidebook is we did try to update some of the areas. This was more relevant to post-secondary. There was a few questions then that weren't necessary or didn't apply to post-secondary. So we kind of identified those. I think the one thing that we maybe didn't update that we were working on is, again, as we do the performance labs, if you remember last year, we really asked you to kind of narrow the focus down, and you were only required to answer like one of those, the questions around work-based learning, credential attainment, or college credit attainment. So we need to work on some language around that, but that'll still be the same this year. That hopefully, based upon your data, you'll be able to draw a conclusion about which one of those you need to focus on the most, and you only have to do that question. But we will make sure those get sent out. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thanks. I did find that email. So my apologies. Yeah, it looks like that was out there from September 1st. So appreciate it. Thanks.
No problem at all. Any other comments? Any other questions? Maybe another challenge that before we kind of move on with the rest of this. All right, we are going to move on to Chris is going to share some information around data and accountability.
All right, so the first thing here, I guess just to reiterate to people, the deadlines and stuff for the 30A. As you know, count day is Monday, I hope. I hope everyone is aware of that. So then you see the submission dates and everything, the 20th, you need to have, that's the date you're supposed to submit things. I said this to people at training the other day, and I want to make sure I say it to everybody. If you're not ready to submit, if you somebody was on fall break and they didn't get stuff to me and I just don't have it, don't submit stuff that's not, don't do it and then we have to redo it later. Just if you don't have it done, just shoot me an email and say, hey, such and such was gone, we don't have anything, and then just submit it when you have it the next week or something. So let's not get into the habit of submitting stuff. We did that at one point and it's a good use of anyone's time. So, but then you gotta have, everything needs to be submitted by the 28th. So you have to have everything done by then. That's important to meet all the deadlines for me getting everything to DOE. Now we've got to have everything in by the 28th. And then you have that extra week then to just get everything signed, and they still want to have the signed copies. So just get everything signed, and then you can upload those. You can upload them individually, or you can get them all together, scan them in as a big PDF, and then upload the whole thing. Either way, it's fine. Just, again, works both ways. I'm gonna skip to this. I should have put these in a different order. The open lab, we're gonna do, I know people are very fond of open lab, so we're gonna do a few of them. The dates are on here. Jed will send them out once we have locations. That's what we're waiting for at this point. With the first one on the 5th is gonna be at Walker. I know that, at Walker Career Center in Indianapolis. The rest of them, we are looking for locations. So if you want to host or something, email Jed and we can try to make it work. We'll see with fall breaks and stuff. I'm hoping we can find locations and everything. If not, we may have to cancel one, but those are the plans. So again, on those dates, people can come in and you can come in and you can do your work. If you want to come in and just be there so we can help you, especially new people, if you want us to just be there so you run into issues, we can help you. You just come in and you can just sit there all day and do your work. We won't bother you unless you need help. So you can come in those days. Just, we ask that if you're gonna come, that you get there by 12:30, 1 o'clock at the very latest, because sometimes people there want to lock the room up and stuff, so we can't stay too late. So just make sure that, and if you're coming that late, also let us know. And if you know you're coming, period, it's nice to just let us know so we know how many people are coming, how much space we need and computers and all that kind of stuff. So
Before we jump to the WBL stuff, I know I saw Lauren and Hillary.
Hillary, did you have something?
Yeah, I'm trying to, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so Jed sent an email, and those dates that you just shared, Chris, are different than what Jed shared, so I just want to make sure, because I put it on my master calendar for
Which
the
one?
Enters 30A. So I have a
submission?
final deadline of November 10th is for uploading the signed form of the 30A with the superintendent's signature, and 3rd is the final amendment deadline, and the 20th is an initial deadline.
I don't know.
Right here.
I
I printed it and put it on my bulletin board.
This morning I was sitting next to Jed and I said, give me these dates, and he read me the dates and I typed them in. It's possible that either he or I, our brain went sideways or something. So we'll make sure whatever he sent out before is correct. So, but we'll send out something. I'll have him reiterate.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm following what's been set. So that's all.
So,
all right. So to clarify,
Isn't it a 5-week process? Chris, isn't it a 5-week process, not 4 weeks? The way you just described it, it's 4 weeks.
well, everything's a little bit different this year, Tim, because the count day being moved back by 2 weeks. So we are trying to be aware of that, but just to make sure, we will follow up on the dates to make sure that we're clear on all of those. On the open lab schedule, Chris, we have 10:25 written twice.
Gosh.
Does that mean morning and afternoon?
No, it doesn't. Sorry, everyone.
So we will make sure, but on those open lab schedules, but we're gonna move on to like the work-based learning and the just.
Thank you.
Again, we're trying to share some information. Oh, before we do that, I forgot.
Lauren put hers in the chat. I think she was just offering to host.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you want to host and stuff, send emails to Jed and we'll get those all together and try to figure it out. So, and also, no, we're gonna send out the open, once we have locations, we will send out the dates. And it's possible if someone said, oh, we can't find a host on the 18th, we may do one on the 19th or something. So those dates are tentative dates anyway until we get locations. But the only one that's real, 10/5 is a real date at Walker Career Center. If you want to come, let us know.
So,
That can be out.
Yeah, so as far as work-based learning, I think this is very important. A lot of people, I've been hearing from a lot of people who are saying that there's just a lot of confusion. And there's a lot of confusion at schools, which I know that I'm not talking to those people right now, but you may want to talk to those people because it's going to be important to them. So as far as for what you need to do for inters, okay, for funding, for accountability purposes in inters, the only thing that you need to do different this year that from what you've done in the past is we added a few more of those work-based learning types. We added the modern youth apprenticeship and the registered apprenticeship and the workplace simulation. So we added a few of the types. We took away embedded and we took away standalone and we added a few additional ones. So the only thing you need to do is make sure for every one of those work-based learning experiences that you enter, okay, everyone should have 2 types, okay? I was kicking around, this is important, it's very important, this data is very important, it's being used for a lot of things right now, so we need to make sure we have it right. So I'm debating whether or not we should even require 2 entries for funding. I haven't decided what to do about that yet, but having said that, you need to make sure each one has 2 entries. They need to have a paid or unpaid. So it's a P or a U for paid or unpaid. Everyone should be one of those things, okay? Then one of the types, they should have one of those. They should be an intern. I'm not gonna be able to say them all right now. My brain's not working, but internship, modern youth apprenticeship, registered apprenticeship. There's a job shadowing. So one of those things should be chosen too. So there should be 2 entries. We no longer have embedded or standalone. So it should be either paid or unpaid, and then one of those other ones for every single one of your work-based learning entries. Okay. That's all you need to do for enters. The only thing different is we need to make sure you have 2. Okay. Now, as far as the DOE side, for these schools in their management system, they need to be using those 0 credit courses, those new courses. And I talked to a director yesterday, I think, and he had a meeting with his like 12 schools and said none of his schools knew anything about it. It was like news to them, these codes. The codes should now be in your SIS. I'm told the SIS vendors have been told by DOE and they've all confirmed that the codes are in the SIS. So they just need to use them. So they just need to, so if you have a student in 5974 work-based learning, you report to us 5974 enters. You tell us if it's paid or unpaid, you tell us which one of the types it is. Then on the school side, they'll have them enrolled in 5974 for however many credits it is for whatever you're reporting to us should be the same. Then on their side, they'll also have them enrolled in the 0 credit course that corresponds to the code that you gave us. So if it's a registered apprenticeship, you'll use that code, or they will use that 0 credit code for that. So they should correspond. Now, I'm hoping, I've talked to DOE about it. They really want to get the data from the SIS. I told them there's a lot of people that don't even know it may be an issue. So and when it all comes down to it at the end, I'm gonna offer again, we have this data, we can compare and see where they may have stuff missing, and then we could fill in the blanks for them. So just make sure that you get the stuff, and again, they should match. So when your school is filling out the template and sending it over, you need to make sure that matches what they're reporting in their SIS. That's going to be important down the road. So, but that's the difference. On the school side, the change is they report the 0 credit course. They still report the CTE course and everything. They just add the 0 credit course. And then on the CTE, on the inter side, you just report that additional code for what type of experience it is. So that's the only differences. So you might want to communicate with your schools about it and make sure that they're aware of what they need to do. So
I would just add that we put, we tried to put an initial explanation in the newsletter that was put out at the end of August. We are hoping to get a newsletter out by the end of the week, and we'll do some additional clarification on a couple of the points Chris made and a couple other things that we've been hearing the most on that. So we'll try to have some items in writing and to help you be able to have those discussions. I think we have a few different questions. I think we had Jean first. Okay, so Jean's question is, what is an embedded type such as building trade students building a house?
So if you took away embedded work-based learning, culinary arts, restaurant, building trades, building, what one do we select now?
Yeah, so the embedded, the only thing that referred to was just telling us that they're not taking a 5974, like a work-based learning DOE code. They're just doing the work-based learning as a part of their regular CTE course. So we took that away because we can tell what, once you tell us that they're doing work-based learning, we can tell that it's embedded. So for that one, is that a simulation? Is that what we're calling that
Yeah,
one?
so building the house would be like a workplace simulation.
Yeah. The things that
A
the students are
restaurant
doing
would
at
be
the school.
A student restaurant would be a workplace simulation.
So yeah, on those, you can put the school as the employer, and then the type is a simulation. So for that, it would be an unpaid workplace simulation. Those would be the two options that you would put in for any of those student enterprises at the schools.
Thank you.
What about CNA?
So you're talking about like when they're doing their clinicals?
So yeah, that just, you can, what are the types? Is there internship?
Internship is a type. Yes.
You can just put it in as an internship through the CNA course.
So on that one, you'd put, again, unpaid internship. That'd be your two choices, two options.
Would you do this? Would you do the same for cosmetology?
I would say that's a workplace simulation. If they're like cutting people's hair and stuff, I would say workplace. I assume unpaid workplace simulation.
Yeah.
If
Thanks.
your CNA is an apprenticeship program, you would denote it in that way though, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
What about the auto services kids that go out and they're working at a oil and lube place?
So that's just an internship. So that's, just mark it as an internship, but it's marked through like the auto services course. So we know that it's just a part of the course. It's an embedded piece of the course.
Yeah, you'd put the employer, mark it as paid or, either P or U for paid or unpaid, and then internship would be the option.
We have this information for, like, if we're doing like the auto services student, it's really one of the things we're running into is, so we know by their enrollment in the auto services class that they are doing that. But when you're using the school as an employer, it would be really helpful to make sure that you're also entering in the pathway information. We know that we have schools that are, like one example is we have students working in the bus garage, or, well, if all you put down is the school as the employer, and that's a work-based learning capstone experience instead of so it's 5974, instead of going through a class, we don't know if they're doing a teaching program, whether they're doing diesel program, or whether they're working like landscaping and maintenance. So be really important that when you're listing the school as the employer, if you could make sure that you put in the pathway, that would be really helpful for us.
Yeah, and for just to piggyback on what Tony just said, the 5974 course, you have to put that in if you want to get funded, because it has to be in the same pathway. So again, anytime you put in an employer and stuff, please, for the embedded ones too, I know those you're not getting paid for the work-based learning per se, but anytime you put in an employer, please tell us the pathway of what they're actually doing, so we can see what kind of work they're doing.
We'll take maybe one more thing here, and then we are gonna move on. If there are, again, we are trying to work on some clarifying language as well in the newsletter. If we don't get to a question that you have, please email us and we can try to incorporate that in what we're sharing. we have a question of just who should be enrolled in the zero credit course in the SIS, and then does the zero credit piece need to be updated before count day?
Yeah, I can go. So, because there's several questions, I just read through them all. So the only students need to be in the zero credit courses are ones that are doing work-based learning. If they're doing work-based learning experience where they're going out, or they're, even if it's in school, I guess, that if it's work-based learning, they need to be entered in one of the zero credit courses to count on the GPS report and possibly for grad pathways, stuff that they're doing at DOE. That's what they're looking at. So it's not every senior, it's not every student, it's just any student in any grade that's doing work-based learning needs to have a zero credit course. And they'll have to have the corresponding record, and they need to have the corresponding record in inters, which is what you've always done.
Yeah. We will work with DOE to clarify though, because I don't know that there is I don't know that it is necessary to have those enrollments in zero credit courses before the inters deadline.
It is not.
So
I can tell you that.
Yeah, it may be like the end of the year will work for them, but we will get you some additional information, because that was a question that came up during the work-based learning workshop last week. Hillary, I know I saw your hand come up. I don't know if there's other questions in the chat, but we're going to move forward here just a little bit, and we'll try to go through some things really quickly. And then if we have time at the end, we'll come back to some of these questions. So real quickly, when we were at the IACTE conference last week, you asked for a update on the career scholarship accounts. Again, I will tell you that, this is a very limited number of students for this year. I don't know that any one school or CTE district is going to have a huge impact because of career scholarship accounts. The deadline for student applications for the career scholarship accounts is October 1st, which is Sunday. That is not changing because that is a date that was in the legislation. I do know that we've had some discussions around, if in doubt, have the student apply, and then we can always remove them before we finalize the CTE funding if there's some concern about that. But the October 1st application date is locked in stone, and has to be that way for at least this year. This may be the most important thing that I share with you today about CSAs is schools and career centers should enroll all students the same way that we always have for their CTE courses. Don't think that because a student has applied for a CSA that you don't have to put in their CTE enrollments. We need those CTE enrollments for graduation requirements. We are also going to use those CTE enrollments to help identify and help the different participating entities determine how much funding should be going back to the schools and the career centers from the CSA account. So it is really important that we don't say, oh, well, that's a CSA student, so we don't have to put in their enrollments. Yes, we do. We need to put in their enrollments so that we have them. Everything else, as far as the CSA, we are going to take care on our end. We will receive a list from the Treasury Department that states, hey, these students have been applied. And then we're just going to go in and identify those students, and then we will pull those students out of the CTE funding formula. So and with that, maybe I need to jump then to the funding aspects here of CSAs. So in the legislation, it states that if a student is a CSA student, they are not eligible to receive CTE funding. However, schools can partner with the intermediary, the employer, whoever the providers are of that particular program, to receive that CTE funding for the students that are receiving related instruction through their CTE programs. So let's say, for example, that a student is doing a modern youth apprenticeship and they are taking two CTE high value CTE courses through the CTE programs at the school. That school or the intermediary or the business can bill the CSA account for, in this case, it would be $1,428 because that is the amount of CTE funding that the school would have received if they were not a CSA student. All right, and it is going to be capped at, for schools and non-tuition students, it will be capped at whatever the school would have received for CTE funding for related courses. That's the most that they can bill the CSA account for. In the case of a career center, if the student is coming to a career center to take those courses, they could bill the student for the tuition to attend the career center. All right, they would not be capped at the amount that they would receive for CTE funding. They can actually bill for the tuition. The one kind of situation that we've ran into is, let's say that we have a student that is a CSA student, is that they are doing an apprenticeship or a youth apprenticeship in IT. But that student is also enrolled as in advanced nutrition and wellness. The CSA account cannot be billed for that advanced nutrition and wellness course because it's not part of the related pathway. It's not part of the program that they are doing. I don't know if that will get changed in future legislation, but essentially that is the only way that a school or a career center should be short on any funding that would go along with the CSA accounts, is if they are taking a non-pathway or a non-related CTE course as like an elective or something along those lines. The part up there at the top, again, we originally started out saying that only intermediaries and employers could bill the CSA. We were trying to get at this idea of a primary provider. That has been changed now. That will allow schools and career centers and other training providers to bill the CSA. But just please keep in mind, there are some challenges with that. Those include the timing aspects of the billing, as well as the exceeding the $5,000 for the billing. But we can talk about that at a later time along those lines. I thought I already saw some questions come up.
Yeah, maybe Jean first, I think. Although in the chat, Jean put, why is the student doing a CSA and enrolling in CT courses for the same thing?
So the modern youth apprenticeship, like a modern youth apprenticeship, requires related instruction. They are using the CTE courses as the related instruction for that program. So that's a good thing, that we want them doing that. We have strong CTE programs. We provide great related instruction. This is no different than IKORCC doing a pre-apprenticeship program where they are utilizing the CTE program in construction trades at a school or a career center. It is the same exact thing. There's no reason not to do this. We're just trying to make sure that we have a way to that they recover those funds and that they are available.
And the student would be choosing that theoretically to allow them to cover other expenses that they previously would not have been able to, maybe related to transportation or equipment or whatever the case might be, as part of the overall experience. And the CT courses are just like a component of the broader experience that they're signing up for.
Yeah, great point. Thank you for covering that.
Hillary, I think yours is still up from the last question, so we'll if we have time for questions, then we'll go there. Any other specific items on CSAs?
All right. I think we got just a couple of others here before we jump off.
This is really quick. It'll be in the newsletter. We're updating the online and virtual, like the actual policy document that we shared last August. So between now and then, we have added 3 programs in the spring, and then we added criminal justice we shared that in the last newsletter. So those changes will be reflected along with just some other minor language changes to kind of clarify like the definition of hybrid and a few other things. Particularly there was that language in legislation. So we've worked to ensure that our policy is in alignment with that. So you won't see any substantive changes, other substantive changes, but it'll just be a new document. And when you're getting questions about what's eligible for online and virtual or things like that, you can refer to that updated document moving forward. And then the industry certification reimbursement funding. So you've all submitted your data in for last year. You had until September 1st to do that. We will be that funding will be distributed in a similar fashion as the same fashion as last year. And as you recall, that money goes to schools for like the homeschool of the student. So, and again, this is just the $200,000 last year, right? So most schools are getting a fairly small amount of money. Wanted to point out again, reminder that because this line item has come on board, we are not offering the assessment grant anymore that had been offered in previous years. And then as you'll recall, the line item beginning this year is 2 million. We will share some additional parameters, what that's going to look like later in the year for preparation purposes. But again, one of the things that we've indicated previously is this line item, the money does go to the schools, so that is a consideration that you may want to take into account if you are the entity paying for the cost of the examinations and things of that nature. You might need to take that into account when as part of your relationship with your school.
Yeah, and we've been sharing for the last couple of years that the assessment grant was on its way out. It just wasn't sustainable for us to keep doing that. But again, the line item went from 200,000 to 2 million. We did the assessment grant, so the most we've ever had to put towards assessments and certification exams was 500,000. We now have 4 times that much available for us to put towards the assessment grant. So that was the reason why we are not doing the assessment grants this year. And I believe that is our last slide, but I do think we have a couple of time for a couple of questions.
Hey, Tony.
Hey, Tony, will they send out a list?
Right.
Go for it. But we'll
Tony,
stay
will they
on
send
for
out a list?
Yes, we will be.
Who's
yes,
gonna, because I'll get a call from central office saying, hey, we got X amount of dollars. You know what this is. So somebody send out a list.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
have to send